right. Okay. All right, here we go. In 3, 2. I got to admit, I did not expect to be having a conversation with Gabe Kapler through Zoom, but that is how we have to do it these days. And you're still in Scottsdale, Gabe. How are you doing? Let's just start with that.
No, I'm doing well, and actually, I'm enjoying the Zoom stuff. It doesn't feel so foreign anymore. For the first couple of days, it was like, hey, what are we doing? And a little bit different than FaceTime, but it's really nice to see people face to face when you don't get to do it as normally as you might during spring training or in San Francisco or whatever. It's been a pleasure.
And your family, everybody's doing okay?
Family's doing good. My boys are in Southern California doing great. My mom and dad are just fine. And we're just trying to all figure out ways to be productive and build and stay competitive during this time.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how quickly a new normal takes over for us. Because last week I was like, how do I record on Zoom? And now I'm a pro. So you're going to join us for 3 Up, 3 Down. Thank you so much. Fans love these. And these are questions coming straight from the fans to you. So let's get started. The first one coming from Alex Escamilla. And he or she, I'm not sure, does Gabe even think at this point there will be any kind of truncated season? And then I have my own little addition. What does that look like to you? There are so many scenarios being played out. The latest, of course, possibly playing while under quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything on the front of are we going to play? When are we going to play? How are we going to play? It just is kind of all just speculation right now. And so what we're focusing on instead is how can we be really prepared for that moment? So the first way is to stay in close contact with our players, get them out, workout schedules, send them drills, be very aware of what they're up to. The idea not being come into the season, whenever that may be, sharp and on point from a baseball perspective, but to be holistically in great shape. So peak physical condition. So there's no real injury risk when the first time these guys stand in the batter's box or get off the mound. They're going at full intensity and their bodies aren't ready for it. So we've really shifted focus to if and when to what do we do to be ready for that moment.
Which it's interesting that you said that because it plays right into the second question. So I'll read it to you. You kind of already answered it, but there's more that I think we can go into. It comes from Eddie Magana, and Eddie wants to know, with what's going on right now, how are you making sure players are getting practice in fielding, batting, and pitching? And so my twist on that, Gabe, is because you don't know when that moment is going to come. And so you're focusing on holistic things right now, but what should they be doing, and how do you find the balance to not do too much so that they have enough in the tank when the date is announced?
Yeah, no, that's great. We don't want them to overdo it right now. They are kind of in a modified off season, and so if you were in the middle of January, you wouldn't be 3-4 hours of volume yet. You'd be kind of slowly ramping up to that moment. I think the best way for a player to prepare for spring training, a modified camp, or the season is to do their form of shadow boxing. So if you think about a fighter in the ring, they're going through all the various moves, putting their bodies in these positions so that they can handle the intensity when it comes. So if I'm a shortstop, I know that getting into a strong athletic position 200 plus times a game is what I want to prepare for. So I kind of rep that in my mind, and then, pretending like there's a pitch crossing the plate 200 plus times. I know that I'm going to take 4 or 5 max intensity swings. I know that I'm going to run on a curve. So that sprint down the first baseline and then with a curve as well, simulate first to home, second to home, and try to go through all the different things that you might do with your body in a Major League Baseball game. If you're doing those with full intensity and real intent, you're going to be fine when you come into spring training.
But then is the point there, as you say, shadow boxing, that they're not getting the impact when you're shadow boxing? So you're doing your steps, you're doing your motions, but you're not actually taking as a shortstop the throw on the arm at this point.
I think you can be. I think your body can handle. So, part of the interesting things about isolation and social distancing is we're doing a lot of these things on our own. So I was an outfielder. As a center fielder, I might take a bucket of balls out to a park, stand in center field by myself, nobody else around, and crow hop and throw to each base. So that's baseball's version of shadow boxing, just preparing yourself for what's going to come up in a game situation.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, your third question comes from Johnny Boy. Gabe, do you think it's a benefit, as you mentioned you were a center fielder, do you think it's a benefit having been a player before a manager? Obviously, you know what they're going through, but can it be a negative in the sense you may be too emotionally invested in guys?
That's an interesting question.
I thought it was interesting too.
I don't think that having experience as a major league player makes me more emotional. I actually think it makes me understand how difficult the game is. And it's not just having been a former major league player, but also having seen the game from a lot of different perspectives. From the perspective of a starting center fielder, from the perspective of a 57th round draft pick who is kind of left for dead after the draft and thought of as a roster filler, from the perspective of a bench player and a role player, and now from the perspective of a coach. I've kind of seen the game from a lot of different angles. So I can put myself in the shoes of Billy Hamilton as a non-roster invitee, of Brandon Crawford as a guy who's going to be the opening day kind of guy. You know, he's a lot of dirt in his spikes and playoff experience. From the perspective of a guy like Darren Ruff, having come back from an Asian country because I played in Japan, so I know what it's like to go over there and then come back and play baseball here. I just want to be able to empathize with our players, and I think that experience gives me that opportunity.
I love that. You have a lot of layers to you and a lot of different experiences. So here comes my question. Now, those were all great questions and very informative answers, but I got a big one for you. This is important to me. During this time of quarantine, Gabe, what is your cocktail of choice, as the amount of alcohol consumption has risen excessively during shelter in place? So I gotta know, what's your go-to drink?
That's my favorite Zoom call question that I've gotten so far. I'm not mixing any cocktails. I have a bottle of whiskey, of scotch, and little bits here and there. And look, I've never been a guy that mixes drinks. I'm a whiskey drinker, and so I drink it neat.
Whiskey, straight up. I love it. Clean. You look good. You're representing the Bay with all your gear. It's good to see you, and you take good care. I hope the next time I interview you, it's at the ballpark.
I hope so too, Amy.
Crossing my fingers. All right, you take good care. Thank you, Gabe Kapler, everyone.
Seeing you.